So I would say it's time to bring Jason Scott back in, and he can illuminate us on the mysterious history of 4 a.m.
Where are my 4 a.m. fans at? How are we all doing out there? So I guess we're just, what is this? We just cold start. I walk up like I usually do to the podium and grab it, and we just fly.
Definitely.
Do I sound like I'm supposed to, and everything's awesome? Because in today's world, we got to constantly ask. Okay, excellent. So here's a little tradition for Kansas Fest that our many new viewers don't know about. Kansas Fest is 5 days of wonder, Apple II spelunking. It is a time of camaraderie and joy and way too many carbs. And one of the side effects of that is that the insistence, the dreadful insistence on the organizers to start things at 9 a.m. Central Time mean that you've got a lot of people trying to pull the last final pieces of the night, stumbling into uncomfortable bunk beds, and then coming up the next morning to hit that 9 a.m. That's asking a lot of people. So some of you do tend to snore during the opening sessions. Unfortunately, I can't hear that. I'm not going to run a loop and listen to it while I talk, but I will ask this of you. If you're somebody who really suffered getting up today to be able to not miss a moment of Kansas Fest, I want to let you know there are no slides, no video, no visual aspects to this talk other than my beautiful face. So if you want to lie down, put the YouTube link on and quietly lie back and let my words slide over you. This is the time to do it. The name slips off the tongue. Mysterious, wonderful, intriguing. 4 a.m. What does it mean? The mystery of 4 a.m. has eluded people for years, and today we'll delve a little deeper to understand the enigma. Hope you're having a wonderful time in this very strange set of circumstances, Kansas Fest. The nature of a Kansas Fest speech is normally a basement room or an overhead projector, and the hope that everyone who is watching is learning something, finding what you're talking about interesting. You usually get feedback immediately. Here in the virtual world, you don't. Maybe hours, days, years before we know the true effect of what we've done here today in 2020. I'm very excited that so many of you are experiencing Kansas Fest for the very first time, often from just knowing it from legends and pre-recorded events. And I will tell you, you're getting 30 to 50% of the experience. So to experience the rest of it, please come when physicality is something we can all do once more. My story starts in a storage unit, a place of broken dreams and an incredible amount of completely worthless clothing, to tell you that right now here in Beacon, New York, there is an entire storage unit full of Apple II material. I call it my inbox. Now, the reason I ended up with an inbox this big is because I'm the software curator and free-range archivist at a nice place called the Internet Archive in Richmond, California. It's also known as the Wayback Machine and archive.org. They do movies, they do music, they do all sorts of ephemeral material. And about 10 years ago, they contacted me and said, we'd really love some help with software. Can you do stuff with software that we have already done with all these other media? And I said, I'll see what I can do. And within a very short time, we were one of the largest accessible archives of software in the world. Tens of thousands of CD-ROMs, hundreds and hundreds of floppy disk images, and even magazines and manuals and all the reading material associated with it. We still continue to get so much every day. Part of my job is to walk through the inbox of the Internet Archive, and I will tell you, we are a fantastic home for a huge amount of vintage computer material. Along with all that, though, is that you can fall for the fallacy that we've gotten it all. We've done the job. We've made it happen. We've got everything. In fact, there's a legendary message I once read explaining that we were done with the Apple II. We'd gotten everything. All the work being done, it was all redundant now. It was not worth wasting everyone's energy and confusing people with multiple copies. We were done. I'm here to tell you, we're not done. There are thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of Apple II products and pieces of ephemera that we have no record of beyond a name, maybe an ad, a mention in a review. It's out there. We have to believe that it's out there, packaged, sitting in someone's basement or attic or in the wreckage of a long-forgotten Fallout-like computer store. How did we get here? Well, it comes down to three simple words. Copy protection works. Copy protection is put in place to prevent those initial users of computer software from turning around, making an easy disk copy, and passing it off to all of their friends. To a company at the time, in the 1970s and the 1980s, copy protection was the difference between life and death. If your product couldn't get enough sales, you moved on to other things. In the 1980s, that mostly involved neon colors and raves, and that wasn't really cool. So you wanted to protect yourself for days, months, hopefully years. And many of them poured all of their resources or contracted some of the best minds in the world to make those discs that looked innocent and easy to use completely uncopyable. Of course, there were many, many titles for whom that didn't hold out. They got cracked immediately, their protection removed, new title screens put on them, rewritten from ground up so that they could be half the size and transferred over modems with ease. As a result, they won the game of preservation. Many of the packages that persisted through the 1980s and 1990s were in many ways mangled. They'd gone through. Think of multiple generations of VHS tapes. Think of photocopied documents, taking a cell phone picture of something to pass to your friends through Instagram. It's just not the same thing. And that became the legacy of Apple II. In 2014, a person came from the darkness. Their name was 4AM, and they had one mission: try it again. Now, it's important to, especially in the modern era, not to place too much credit on whoever does a new job right by taking away all the work that was done before them. Young kids, smart kids, brilliant adults, they all got together in the 1980s and 1990s and learned the Apple II completely. They wrote books about it. They wrote documentation about it. They made all sorts of inroads into understanding this technology in ways that even Steve Wozniak didn't comprehend. It's important to give credit to those folks because they are the giants whose shoulders we build on now. 4AM became a cracker of renown because they weren't in it just to take an old piece of software and crack it and call it a day and claim that they were the first when they weren't. Instead, they focused on learning, discovery, and sharing. 4AM initially started with clean cracks. Clean cracks, of course, being cracking of software in which no modification is done to the actual operation of the program outside of its copy protection. So you saw the title screens, you saw the documentation. It was the full size of a full floppy, except the copy protection didn't kick in. Clean cracks are truly uncredited labor for the cracker. And it represents wanting people to experience the software as it was meant to be reached. But 4AM didn't stop there. 4AM moved on to write-ups. Now, the write-ups are thrillers. Let's be frank. If you've ever looked at a 4 a.m. release and you haven't read the text file that comes with it, you have stepped over the sleeping body of a master, because those write-ups are science fiction, mystery, and thriller wrapped into one. It walks you through the discovery, the use of tools, trying to figure out what's going on, having a revelation, trying it, and then modifications and learning until finally the cracked software sits before your eyes. You can follow that yourself, use the same available tools, and become your very own 4 a.m. 4 a.m. could have stopped there as well, but there was a recognition that there was an entire range of software that had lost the preservation race. You see, games sell themselves. They're full of action, they're full of wonder, they're full of graphical tricks that we all fall for. As a result, they're very fun to trade. They get the attention of people you're trading with. Lying in the darkness, however, is business software, utilities, educational software. Many of them with as fervent a copy protection as any game we ever saw sold, which meant that you not only had to crack a piece of software, but do so knowing that nobody wanted it. As a result, there is a mass of educational software that we learned with if we were teenagers or elementary school kids on Apple IIs, that were in great danger of being lost forever, simply by dint of being mundane. 4 a.m. started focusing heavily on educational software, and as a result, dozens and dozens of software packages and stories of crafts people and artists have come to light as we learn more about them. The same with productivity software, utilities. These are, in the modern era, anywhere near useful, because we've long moved on to other platforms for the things that these were providing for us. But it was important to see the first steps, the evidence of innovation and wonder. So that's what we've focused our efforts on, those obscure pieces of software that live in the corner, in the shadows, cracking them and making them available. Innovation came further with the applesauce, which you'll hear about later today. If you're not aware of the applesauce, it is NASA-grade technology applied to a children's scrapbook. It is the ability to magnetically flux an Apple II disk and then not only ingest the program, but its copy protection, its disk layout, and its timings. Between an A2R file, which can be up to 10 or 20 megabytes, there's also a WOZ file, .woz, named after the man himself, which emulates the layout and specific trickery of an Apple II disk. What this meant was that in theory, you didn't have to crack anymore. Well, the fact is that the WOZs are one piece of the puzzle. Right now, at the Internet Archive, you can download thousands of A2R and WOZ files and learn for yourself where the Apple II came from. You can also experience a collection called the WOZ-A-Day. It's at archive.org/details/WOZADAY. It is, to me, the forward-thinking, perfect stage for Apple II history. Every once in a while, 4 a.m. uploads another WOZ of a rare or previously unpreserved piece of software, provides documentation on where it came from, and invites you to click on it in the browser and experience it immediately with all the same timing and sound and experience of the original. This is where we make our stand. Why do we do this? What's the purpose of this? Well, the answer is that if you've gotten this far in this speech, if you've gotten this far in Kansas Fest, I don't have to explain it to you. You came here because the Apple II is a fascinating piece of equipment. The way it was built, perhaps the last single computer designed by one person. The evolution of computers from breadboards and small kits into a beautifully packaged, expensive, but well-made experience. If that tickles something inside of you, if that makes your heart beat, if that makes you happy, then you know exactly why we're here. 4AM's talent and perseverance does not come without a price and without assistance. You're talking hours of work. You're talking days, months of looking at one title, trying to figure out what trick they're doing. In doing so, 4AM has built a coterie of assistants, friends, compatriots, including Cucumba and John Morris and all the team at MAME and Arby and a list that could take the rest of my speech. They also recognize the importance of capturing the Apple II as easily and comprehensively as we can, sharing documentation, learned experiences, and coming up with ways to optimize, redo, and improvise as needed. To that end, there's a product that 4AM made called Passport. Passport is an auto-cracking mechanism. It's downloadable on GitHub and at the archive. It is a program that, when presented with an Apple II disk image, attempts to crack it. It can crack many, many professional programs. Now, the natural question is, you already did it. Didn't we do it already? But you see, what's important about Passport is Passport functions not just as a program that can crack a disk image that's probably already been cracked 100 times. It does so explaining what it's learning. And it alerts you if it runs into something it's never seen before. It functions, in other words, as an automaton that lets you get through the boring parts and find out if your sensors have produced something new that needs your investigation. Passport's been updated for years and years and years. Again, 4AM could have been content with that. The art of cracking, the documentation of cracking, an automaton of cracking. But the biggest project that's been going on, which if you've been in the Discord and you've been keeping any attention to all this, is the incredible Total Replay. You see, Total Replay is not just a games machine. I mean, it certainly gives that impression. But what it represents is exhaustive efforts by a team of people who are trying to make every game that they can for the Apple II playable on every Apple. This involves patches to the original code. This involves understanding if there have been modifications to the Apple you're playing on. You see, Apple copy protection works. Sometimes it works so well that the disks didn't work at all. There were actual cases of protection so draconian that it would require multiple boots on a perfectly functioning copy, on a perfectly functioning Apple to work because the tolerances were so out of whack. Similarly, there were games that would come out in 1982 that couldn't work in 1984 models. And with that window gone, there seemed no reason to go back. So the Total Replay project is not just an incredible arcade that you can run on your Apple, even though it is. It's also our way of producing one golden tome, one golden image that could represent an entire insight into the Apple aesthetic and the Apple joy. Of course, there's another program called Pitch Dark, which is to text adventures what Total Replay is to most other games. It's wonderful, it's beautiful, and as somebody who worked on a full documentary about text adventures called Get Lamp, I appreciate the fact that an entire new generation can play these games on the Apple II experience, which, by the way, was in many ways helped with people like John Romero getting their start in professional software, because he would be hired to write unique disk structures. We've been so blessed at all of these people who have gone on to riches and fame in games, recognizing how much the early Apple II influenced them and sent them on their way. So, where do we go from here? Well, as other people have mentioned, it's been one of my side projects, and truly it's on the side, to catalog all Apple software, to get at least a hint, an inkling of what's out there. To do this requires incredibly boring work with spreadsheets and going through OCR text and cross-referencing, work that was done professionally in the 1980s, but now would represent an incredible sink of time. But if you're a person who feels like they don't want to learn machine language, or that they don't have the time to really get into Apple II cracking, perhaps you might find some joy in this and contributing metadata and helping us find missing links. There have been a number of volunteers for the Wazaday project who have been, they've been adding all sorts of metadata into the entries working with me. So they're finding ads and reviews and the contexts and controversies long dead related to some of these packages. For instance, Hard Hat Mac had an enemy who was an OSHA inspector, and this turned out to be a small kerfuffle at the time the game came out. OSHA was horrified that they would be portrayed as an enemy, and the fledgling Electronic Arts had to deal with this controversy on top of everything else. There are 1,000 stories waiting to be told in the metadata of these discoveries. I hope you'll consider getting involved in that. You can always write me at jason@textfiles.com. You can always find me on Twitter as Textfiles. And you can always find me talking, chatting, and loving what the Apple II is. So, what's the mystery of 4 a.m.? Well, the mystery is who is 4 a.m. And I'll tell you, I'm 4 a.m. You're 4 a.m. We're all 4 a.m. People have the name, but the love of the Apple II that drives us to this old machine beats in all of our hearts, along with that name. So I'm asking you, 4 a.m., please join us. We're going to do some incredible things. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Does anybody have any questions for Jason that they want to throw out? I see applause.
I deserve no applause.
So much applause.
So just a little context for people. I had a pre-recorded presentation. In fact, I harangued the other presenters to say, you folks really seriously need to use pre-recorded. Don't do anything else. And then, having worked their tails off to produce pre-recorded things, I then turned around and did it live. Here's why. I went out filming to do video, and on Tuesday I got into a car accident. I failed to notice a no traffic bar on an access road that I was going to film in, and I smashed my car into it. I'm fine, but it did shake me up for a couple days, and I didn't do any filming. So I ended up having to move the editing of the presentation a day or two in advance beyond what I had done, and I realized that I was rushing things. I don't want to rush things. You know, as they say, a delayed project wastes a little bit of time, but a rushed project lives forever. So that's why I did that to you. My apologies to my fellow presenters for making you work so hard, only to turn around and grab with both hands the glory and the wonder of a live presentation. All right. Anyway, are there any questions before we throw on to the next person?
Somebody asking you explain again what total replay is.
Sure. Total Replay is a 32 megabyte disk image, which for Apple IIs allows you, if you plug it into a peripheral, there are peripherals for the Apple II that allow you to put things like compact flash cards and other storage onto it, will convert your Apple into essentially a front-facing multi-arcade machine and allow you to play hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Apple II games, allowing you to do text search and press question mark and get info about the game and its keyboard setups and be able to play it on essentially almost every Apple II model. There's also, at the Internet Archive, a link to Total Replay where you can click on it and play it all in your browser, which to some of the more intense players feels a little bit laggy because it uses JavaScript to emulate a full Apple II in your browser. And so those millisecond moments in Apple Panic get lost. So don't use it to win at Twin Galaxies. Please use it to get an idea of the breadth of the Apple II gaming spectrum. That's what Total Replay is. If you wander into the Discord and say, give me links, please, I guarantee you will be flooded with them.
I don't know if you have time for this, but someone says, how can we fight bad laws like the DMCA that prevent us from preserving our culture and history? That sounds like a whole talk in itself.
Yeah. In all cases, I'll just make it more general than that, which is to say that if there are laws, if there are rule sets that you don't agree with, get involved and understand the players in them, the forces, anytime you have a paradigm in the world, any paradigm, you've got committees, lobbyists, you've got certain legislators who lean in one direction or lean in another on the issue, and learn about them. Don't just complain about them. Get involved, write letters, find out if there are other groups to organize with in any direction of anything. This is not a time to disengage. This is a time to engage. So if your thing is copyright or if it's some other aspect of society, it helps to become more involved, not less.
Okay. I don't think I see anything else going on there that we need to throw your way. So
if I've done it right, over 100 people are asleep on their couch with my voice just flying over them like an NPR podcast. That's all I wanted. I just wanted 100 sleeping people and then waking up halfway through a talk about something else, Apple, and just getting completely confused. So that's all I wanted. I'll be around all day, and I am in, I believe, unless Kay has kicked me out for not paying my union dues, I believe I'm in the performance later today. The most confusing panel that Kansasfest provides.
Yes.
The readings of the 1980s.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your presentation.
All right. Much love to all of you. My name's Jason Scott. I'm the guy with the hat. I'll see you in the Discord.